Holy City Center Radio, it is episode 342, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Monday, February 17th, 2025. We are just rolling through February. It's already the 17th, and of course, this is the shortest month of the year every year, as there's only 28 days, of course, sometimes 29. So we're even closer to the end of the month than we normally would be. I was just shocked when I read that date. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I hope you had an amazing weekend. Weather's been kind of like, we've had little drizzles here and there, but it's been kind of warm, but looks like it's going to be a little chilly tonight and probably Monday night as well. There's some warming shelters that are open. If you know anybody who may need those services or you yourself need them, details are on holycitycenter.com. So yes, everyone stay warm and bundled up. Looks like we're going to have some chilly weather, as I just said. Not much to talk about before we get into the latest news. I did enjoy watching, and I know some of you are not going to like this, but I did enjoy watching my Yukon Huskies defeat South Carolina on Sunday. Woo! I'm obviously a Yukon fan. I'm an alum, as you all know, because I talk about it a lot. I did not expect the Huskies to just dominate like that. I thought they could win, certainly. But I also thought the Gamecocks could easily beat the Huskies. I expected a really tight game. And, the Huskies came and right off the bat, we're ready to roll. And they almost won by 30. I mean, it was just shocking. But lots of the season left. They could very easily meet again somehow in the tournament. And I'm sure it would be a much different game at that point. I'm sure this will serve as some sort of wake-up call for the Gamecocks, and they'll bounce back. But what a game, and college basketball, men's and women's, have being just fun to watch again this season, But anyway, you're not here for that. You're here for the latest news, so let's get into it. So, yes, the last episode, we talked about the whole Nancy Mace situation. I appreciate everyone who listened. And I touched on the fact that the four men that she had accused of all manner of different crimes had all denied it. And then also that Alan Wilson denied that his office had received these reports. So I mentioned those in the last episode. But since then, there's been a little bit more talk, especially from Patrick Bryant, her ex-fiance, because he's the only one, at least that SLED is confirmed or any police agency is confirmed, is under investigation in any way related to what Nancy Mace said. And so he has come out most forcefully. Out of all the guys, he's been the most forceful with his statement. So in any event, I'll let you decide for yourself, but that's my opinion. He just kind of came out swinging a bit. And his statement is, quote, "I loved and believed in her, which is why the betrayal and lies are especially hurtful. I strongly deny all of her criminal allegations and take this matter very seriously. I am prepared to fully cooperate with any legal proceedings to clear my name and set the record straight," end quote. So why I say it seems like he came out kind of strong is, obviously saying things like betrayal and lies, but of course, mentioning he wants to clear his name and mentions legal proceedings. So obviously exploring his options. So just thought I should, talk about that, strongly worded denial he put out, just because we talked so much in the last episode about the allegations. And as I said, the other three have also issued, short responses denying everything that they were accused of as well. But they are not under investigation, again, at least not that any police department has confirmed. So there's that statement, and really the only update since Nancy Mace was on the House floor making those allegations. It's not going to be the last we heard of it, of course. I mean, that's the last piece of news. But there's been plenty of opinion pieces and obviously people offering their own opinions on social media and whatnot. And so we're at that stage right now. And I was glad to see a post that kind of said what I was saying, which was we have to believe her. These are very serious allegations and she should be believed despite her past, whether you want to say she's lying or whatever you want to call some of her past actions about things. Basically saying, take it seriously. let's not worry about who the messenger is, and let's absolutely look into this. And in the same category, they were making the argument to, believe the attorney general's office that they didn't know about this yet because it wasn't at that stage of the investigation. So glad to see there were some others that kind of shared what I was trying to say in that last episode. But in any event, when there is any actual news, I'll be sure to update you all. Really sad, but unfortunately not shocking situation, at least in my opinion. So the Goose Creek Police Department, by the way, this story is going to be about their department, but the North Charleston Police Department had a similar issue. And of course, I'm sure not just police departments, but all sorts of organizations across the country are having this same exact issue. So keep that in mind, that although this is focused on Goose Creek Police Department, number one, they're not the only police department dealing with this. And yes, all over social media, businesses are dealing with similar things. So the Goose Creek Police Department ended its social media series they had going that was highlighting Black employees during Black History Month. This is obviously something I'm sure you've all seen. All sorts of businesses, government organizations, police departments, whatever it may be, celebrating their employees on Black History Month. Or showcasing something related to it. Nothing new. We've seen this for years and years. But they decided to end this series because they were getting so many racist and hateful comments, specifically comments that were directed at the people themselves that were being featured in the series. Not that like a broad racist comment's good, of course, but just keep in mind that this was also targeted at the people that they were highlighting, like specifically. So the local police department originally had asked its employees to provide like a little snippet that they could post on social media, anything they wanted to share with the community. But the police department went on Facebook, and I'm sure some of their other social media channels, to say that several of their employees ended up being subject to racist comments. The agency said on social media, quote, "Unfortunately, the amount of hatred, racism, and negativity that has been received on these posts is unfathomable. Honestly, people should be ashamed," end quote. And they went on to say some other things. Our employees, I mean, they were strong in defending their employees. They did say they do not deserve to be subject of this type of social media outrage, and that they will continue to internally celebrate and appreciate their employees regardless of viewpoints, perspectives, or cultures. And they said not just within the police department, but the city as a whole. So a good response. A few people mentioned, I wish they kept the series going, but just turned off comments. But once your employees have been subjected to what these folks were, do you even want to put the picture out there for, someone to screenshot and then just make their own negative post with it anyway? So I don't blame them. It is sad. It's not new, of course. I'm sure in the past, these types of posts received negative, racist, hateful comments. I know when I've posted things about Black History Month, or one that sticks out in my mind, there's a Black Food Truck Festival that launched a handful of years ago. And anytime you post about it, you get the comments like, "When's the White Food Truck Festival?" So you're always, that's not new. You're getting that stuff. But just the way social media has gone with less, blocking or suspending accounts, especially Twitter. But, Facebook is showing that they're kind of, they're going back to, oh, well, free speech, more free speech friendly, which apparently means that racist, bigoted things are okay. And look, I get it. I know what free speech is, but, and people are allowed to have these awful opinions and viewpoints. I just don't understand why we have to be subjected to them on these huge platforms like Facebook or Twitter. It doesn't, where kids can see it, but it's not even just about kids. It's about the people it's directed at, of course, as well. It just furthers hate. And, with the rhetoric in this country, as I've discussed, whether it's about the trans community or so-called DEI, which just seems to be code in their minds, people who think DEI is evil and horrible, seems to be code for any person of color. Yeah, so I wish I was surprised by this, but I was not. And I posted about it on Twitter. Some of you may have seen it, and the responses to that were bad. And I, engaged a little bit with some of those folks, but which I probably shouldn't have. But in any event, it's just a sad sad state of affairs of where we're at right now. These people who have these abhorrent beliefs just feel emboldened to say whatever they want. And people who, maybe not are these like horrific, racists, they might just be uninformed or unclear. Like they don't. I mean, I'm giving some people too much credit. Like the people, I'm trying to say that I'm sure there's people out there who legitimately believe the lies about what DEI is and isn't. So they're not meaning to, be racist when they're trying to get rid of DEI. They've just been misled and misinformed and, or haven't looked into it themselves. But so it's any range of people. But this type of stuff, this just like blatant out there screaming like the worst racist and bigoted things. It just feels like people have become more and more emboldened over the last year or so. And it's just really sad to see how out of control the rhetoric is in this country towards any group of people. So again, just a sad thing that happened. Wish it didn't. Not surprised, unfortunately. And I just hope at some point this current shift we've had in the culture will correct itself, and racists will go back to hiding in the shadows. Although sometimes it is nice to see them out in the daylight so you know who they are. But I think it was better when we weren't subjected to so much of it all the time. So, the news nationally has been hard to keep up with everything in the Trump administration, all sorts of announcements and cuts and press conferences, and then walking back certain things and, et cetera, et cetera. But there, as I'm sure you've seen, there's been some, especially with this supposed Doge department with Elon Musk going through and trying to find wasteful spending and cutting programs and trying to shut down departments and on and on and on. No surprise, some of these decisions have had real world effects. And in some cases, they've had effects that I think some of his voters didn't intend on. And we'll touch on that a little bit. But here with the local focus, so organizations across the state that specifically, I mean, there's lots of organizations that have been affected by some of these cuts or funding freezes. But some organizations in South Carolina that were really affected by it were ones that support survivors of domestic and sexual violence. These organizations, like a lot of nonprofits, are they don't have a lot of money to do what they're already doing, and they need more and more to provide adequate, or at least have some comfort that they can continue to offer services to as many people as possible. So if funding that especially funding they're planning on is frozen or removed, that's a huge issue. And we'll touch on some specifics, but also because of this freeze that happened, they also are uncertain, could this happen again? Or will they, the administration deny court orders, which it seems like they were doing at one point? And will our funding just be cut altogether because it's seen as quote DEI or something, because they're just cutting things and claiming it's this or that, and it's not. So it's created a lot of uncertainty at these necessary organizations that we have. So back on February 11th, a federal appeals court denied a Trump administration request to reinstate a freeze on federal funding that the president had started in late January. And they denied that after a lower court judge found that the Trump administration had still withheld some funding after the freeze was temporarily blocked. So they put this freeze out there, started. A lower court heard arguments, and they said, nope, you gotta, do not have this freeze. Everything's got to be business as normal. We have to look into different legality aspects of this. Apparently, they ignored that and continued to withhold some funds. And then a higher court, federal appeals court, denied their request to put the freeze back on. So as of this moment, funds should be going back to the organizations that were relying on things like federal grants, et cetera. But for some nonprofits, when certain funding stops, like I said, it can be a big issue. And some of the funding that was stopped and that they were expected to have by now has not been dispersed, according to some of these organizations. And there, you can get more details on the link in the show notes. Post and Career did an amazing job, as usual, doing a deep dive. I'm just trying to hit the higher points here. So, a little bit for some more specifics. Organizations like helping survivors of domestic and sexual violence and preventing such acts across the country saw their grants from places like the Center for Disease Control and Prevention's Rape Prevention and Education program held up without any explanation when all this confusion was going on. And locally, here in South Carolina, organizations also receive funds from that program. One such organization is Tri-County Speaks, which is located here in the Low Country. And, despite the court-ordered stay on the funding freeze, Deborah Friel, who is Tri-County Speaks executive director, she said she was told the South Carolina Department of Public Health would not be releasing the funding, which ultimately led to this organization having to make a difficult decision. They had to decide, do we let a person go that worked for them, or do they try to find alternative funds in order to support her salary? So Friel said that they were able to pay the employee's salary with some other funds, but they're not sure how long that could last. So already, that quickly, when these types of organizations, these aren't businesses raking in profits. These are, nonprofits that are dedicating most of their funding to helping people. And of course, yes, they're going to pay their workers, and they're having to decide, what do we do? Do we try to find funding for this person or let them go? Or do we have to make another decision about a certain program that we offer? I mean, it's already happening. And it was just because of the freeze happening momentarily, and that's really scary to think. If it was paused longer or is reinstated or the funding's cut completely, these organizations may not survive. Another example is the Julie Valentine Center, which is a sexual assault and child abuse recovery center that's located in Greenville. They saw a $36,000 grant from the CDC's program pause. So they were affected by that pause on that same exact program. And the Post and Courier article said they had to make a similar tough decision, and other organizations are having to do that. So who voted for this is a question you're hearing a lot lately, because people who voted for Trump, I certainly would think a majority of them at least would not be happy about this. No, these would keep the funding going to those. If you're looking for waste and whatever, okay, go find it. But this clearly isn't government waste. These are programs that are helping people all around the country. And we need more of those organizations, and they need more funding. So it's just whether this was intentional or not, I think that funding freeze, they just didn't think it through. And it's had some other effects, whether it's in the medical community or in others. You're going to hear this a lot too. Elections have consequences. If you don't look into what these people are saying they're going to do and what that means, you might end up voting for something you didn't realize you were. And I think the next story also highlights that I think a lot of people voted for something because they were misinformed and didn't want to listen to people who were like, hey, no, that's not what that means. Or no, he's going to do this thing. They're talking about it in the open. Like, this isn't like some conspiracy theory. They're going to do this thing. And people just didn't want to hear it because, oh, well, if, CNN reported it or the New York Times, it's got to be a lie. So in any event, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to, see the consequences of their vote that they probably were not thinking about happening. And certainly weren't intending on happening. And again, I think this next story highlights that, just like the one I was just talking about did. So for years, students at Ashley Hall, which is an all-girls private school located in downtown Charleston, they've been encouraged to consider engineering as a career path. For those who don't know, in fields, sometimes also known as STEM, which includes other aspects, STEM-type jobs are highly dominated by men, and I'm sure there's in certain industries it's always going to be, maybe a man gets a job over a woman that shouldn't. but it's also the numbers aren't aligned. There's a lot more men in those fields. So you've probably seen all girls STEM or similar programs or initiatives, maybe not at a school, but open to the public, encouraging young girls to go into this field. And it's for that reason, just to get more out there. Sounds like a perfectly normal and fine event. Correct. Well, unfortunately, this annual event that they called Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day, um, it was made possible thanks to a partnership that they had with the Joint Base Charleston. Well, now that it's been canceled, though, obviously some families are a little dismayed. They're disappointed, and some are probably curious. Wait, why did this program end? Well, the reason is because of President Donald Trump's federal ban on, you guessed it, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, as I've said ad nauseum, and I'm sure most of you know, a lot of people, just like the whole CRT debate, took this acronym, DEI, and morphed it into something that it wasn't. Now, were there organizations that had some sort of DEI program or initiative or whatever? Did they implement it poorly? Absolutely. Did some people maybe take it too far and didn't do these types of programs and initiatives the way they're supposed to be? I'm sure. But what it's supposed to be is a good thing, and it's supposed to benefit everyone. Now, if you're used to privilege, other people getting similar treatment that you get may seem like you're losing rights, but you're not. It's just the playing field is leveled, but it doesn't mean that someone less qualified than you is going to get the job. That's what it's supposed to be, and that's a wildly oversimplification of the whole program. So I think a lot of Trump supporters, when they heard this, they thought minorities, whether it be a cultural minority, a racial minority, someone in the LGBTQ community, whatever the boogeyman of the day was, I think they saw that as, these people who aren't qualified are getting jobs. Like, obviously, the people who bought into that didn't really know what DEI actually was and what it's supposed to do and how it actually works. And now they're realizing, oh, wait, some of those programs helped women? Oh, I didn't think it was. Oh, I just thought it was the LGBTQ and the racial minorities. I didn't know women would be affected. And of course, there's some who don't care about women being affected. But, there's certain groups that are like, oh, wait, I thought you just meant X group, not Y group. They didn't realize that their DEI covers a wide swath of all sorts of different groups, people with disabilities as well. I mean, just to name a few. There's others, and that these programs and initiatives lead to good things that everybody agrees upon, for instance, maybe certain places having to be ADA compliant, being able to say if someone's in a wheelchair that they are able to use your venue. Certain places are required to have that, certain businesses. Oh, wait, you mean that could go away with some of these funds and grants, building wheelchair ramps? That's part of DEI? Yeah. And a lot of dummies are now figuring it out that, not that thinking what they thought was right, because it is not at all, but they didn't realize, oh, people like me or people that I hang out with and care about will be affected by this. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I know this isn't on the level of, not building a wheelchair ramp or anything to do with, funding being frozen for medical studies or programs that involve medication. I know that this isn't on that level at all. But my point is, this is one that I think people who voted for Trump or anti-DEI or whatever, this is something that they didn't see coming. And so one of the parents said it, perfectly in the article. At first, I wasn't sure if he was being serious or was saying what he thinks others believe. And after reading the full article, it's clear he's saying this is what a lot of people he thinks were believing when they were voting for Trump. Not that that was his personal belief, but Mike Kulik, who is a parent of a freshman at the school, said that his kid planned on participating in the event. And that he thinks many people voted for Trump because they would believed that he would end the practice of, quote, unfairly rewarding minorities, end quote. And that's what I just said. He said it a little bit more succinctly, of course. But that's exactly it. They didn't see it as affecting, this private school that costs a lot of money that my sweet baby Angel goes to, she's has a program at her school that's considered part of DEI and it's going to be canceled, but this is a good program. It's that kind of thing. So in any event, yeah, a lot of people obviously didn't expect that all of a sudden, high school students who have programs that may help their career path would just be completely, removed from them. In a February 8th letter to parents, the school said that it was not their decision to cancel the event. Obviously, they had no choice. It had been in place since 2017, with approximately 250 to 270 girls participating each year. So, obviously just a sad thing that happened and that some people got caught up in and shouldn't have had to. But again, I think a lot of parents at that school perhaps are now realizing, oh, wait, this is what we voted for. And oh, wait, a lot of people told us that something like this may happen. And why didn't we believe that? So I hope this leads to some people, actually learning about things and looking into things. And when they get pushback from someone, they go, all right, I don't believe that my girls' school is going to lose their STEM event, but this guy's telling me it is. Maybe I should at least look into it. Like, not saying just blindly believe when someone pushes back on you, but so many people said this was coming and here it is. So again, hopefully it'll change some hearts and minds, but I'm not holding my breath. All right, and just real quick, a little bit of a bummer of news. I mean, I don't think it's a huge deal because it'll still be there and it will possibly reopen. But the Powder Magazine Museum, that little tiny space next to the parking garage downtown, just a couple blocks from the market. Specifically, it's on Cumberland Street. It's one of Charleston's oldest buildings and is a public museum, but it's going to... that whole aspect, the whole museum aspect, is going to be no more, at least temporarily, we hope. So the small cultural attraction, it focuses on early colonial and military history. It's going to close to the public on February 28th. So if you want to go see it, you have until then to do that. It will remain operational for some education programs and field trips for schools and stuff. So that's good. I do know that they are also going to do some minor renovations and things like that during this time frame, and hopefully they'll reopen. The reason they decided to stop daily admissions, though, wasn't for the renovations. According to the president of this statewide organization that the Powder Magazine falls under, it came down to finances. So that's why they just wasn't bringing in enough versus what they were putting out. But perhaps after renovations or some, rethinking of some of these programs and whatnot, it'll reopen. So we'll see what happens. All right, that'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. There was so much other news to get to. That's why this episode was a little long, but there's still so much to get to. So hopefully it'll be a little quiet, maybe please, over the next couple days, so we can play catch up and catch our breath a little bit. We'll see. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. Have a great week ahead. I will talk to you in just a couple of days. Until then, good night and good luck.